Welcome to the Switchblade Sisters Social Club. Yet another true crime podcast where two middle-aged friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome.
For more information, find us on Instagram and Facebook or check out our website at www.switchbladesisterssocialclub.com. Audience discretion advised.
Hi. Hello. This is Switchblade Sisters Social Club. My name's Dee, and this is Emma.
Hello, everybody.
We are a true crime podcast where two friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome. We had an amazing week, didn't we?
We did.
Because we had our two events at the brewery market where we presented our Cozy Crimes and Christmas Beers event. We did 2 nights, and the people that came along were amazing, weren't they?
Yeah, so good.
Listeners.
So good.
Yeah.
Sexy listeners, we love you.
So Linda put up some amazing Christmas beers with some lovely, mainly cheese-based snacks, which everyone appreciated. And yeah, we tried really hard, didn't we, to find cozy crimes. But it's really hard to find true crimes that are cozy, you know?
Very much. I think everybody's favorite one of mine in all of it was definitely the naked guy in the chimney.
Yeah, that was a good one. Naked Santa busted in the chimney.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people quite liked my eggnog guy, the guy that robbed a convenience store of all their cash and a single bottle of eggnog. Like he had a party to go to and he wanted to bring a bottle. But
do you know what's really weird? I don't even know if I should admit this actually, but I'm going to anyway.
I'll edit it out if I don't think you should have.
No, it's fine. I've never had eggnog in my life, not once.
That's not that weird. I'll get you some eggnog or make you some. It's the kind of drink that it's nice to have a little sip or two. It tastes like alcoholic custard. It's literally alcoholic custard. Do you like it? Do you like custard?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But why is it called eggnog?
Well, I mean, it definitely has egg in it. I don't know what the nog means.
Is it like raw? It's raw egg, though.
I don't know. I
mean, it sounds gross.
It tastes like it's slightly thinner, hot, alcoholic custard. It's really nice, but it is the kind of drink that you can have like one little glass. Like you wouldn't want to get drunk on eggnog.
You'd probably be sick.
Yeah, it would get curdly up in there, you know. But it is quite tasty. It is one of the things I like about Christmas, eggnog. Yeah. So we had super fun at our Christmas event, and we also announced that we've been working on our schedule for our events next year, but we are doing 3 nights for Valentine's Day, the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th of February at Brewery Market. So if you go to our website, you can have a look. You can buy tickets. They're £25 tickets, and it's a little bit more expensive on the actual Valentine's Day. So come along on Valentine's Day or any of those days if you want to do something that's less cheesy than your normal Valentine evening, or if you want to grab your girls and go, or your friends, or come on your own. We have lots of people that come to our events on their own and make new friends there. The Valentine's Day itself is a little bit more expensive because you get a gift. And
Very
I'm so
exciting
excited.
Gift.
Yeah. It's a Murder on Tap, our events where we pair our true crime with beers. They're called our Murder on Tap series. We Murder on Tap beer glasses, which I'm so excited about.
I mean, I definitely want one.
Just one? I'm going to clear out all of my glasses and have only. So you'll get those as a gift if you come along on Valentine's Day. I'm sure we'll have them for sale at some point as well. The 13th is Galentine's Day. If you follow the religious calendar of Parks and Recreation, the 13th is Galentine's Day, where you grab all your friends and you celebrate your love for your friends. And then weirdly, we found out yesterday as Linda was announcing to the crowd, the 12th of February is going to be our uncensored night.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, we've not been censoring ourselves at all. I mean, if
ever.
anything, people that would say that that's a problem about us, but apparently we're going to censor ourselves even less on the 12th of February.
God help everybody.
So, so that'll be the night we get arrested or die, I'm sure. But yeah, so we're so excited about those. Come along to them. We absolutely adore doing those events. Brewery Market is such a lovely place, and we like meeting our sexy listeners in person.
We do. And also really appreciated like how much everybody got involved in my crimes last night. It was good. It was really good.
Wow, it's lovely because it was your first time joining me doing these events as my new co-host, and they are just so lovely and welcoming and adorable, isn't it? It just feels like having a pint and talking about crimes with your mates, which is exactly what it is, really. Right, so do you want to talk about some murder?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this case came up in another case. I'm loving it. It's like almost spin-off cases, you know? They get mentioned in passing in a case that we cover, and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put a pin in that because I want to come back to that, because what the hell, right? So this came up in our Elan school episode. Remember the like reform school where a lot of rich kids used to go to, or a lot of people would get sent to by the courts and so forth, and it had just so much abuse that was going on in it. Terrifying.
Horrendous. It was horrendous.
Yeah. So this case was mentioned in that episode. Then also something relating to it was mentioned in our amazing episode with Louis Ferranti the other week. So you'll see what I mean when that comes up. So this is the case of Martha Moxley. My main source is a series on Amazon Prime called Murder and Justice, The Case of Martha Moxley. It was hosted by an amazing woman called Laura Coates, who's a former federal prosecutor. Martha Moxley was a 15-year-old straight-A student. She was beautiful, she was kind, she was loved. She was living in the sort of Greenwich area of Connecticut in a gated community called Belle Haven. A very wealthy area, you know, it's a gated community, massive big houses. Think like houses like Home Alone house, you know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So on the 30th of October, her life was ended abruptly, prematurely, and really cruelly when she was 15.
I don't like this already.
She was found beaten to death with a golf club right outside her house. This case, to make matters worse, went unsolved for 25 years when finally someone went to jail for it. But then 11 years later, that person was acquitted. So has justice ever been done? Because at the moment, there's no one in jail for her murder.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So apparently the night before Halloween is known as Mischief Night. I mean, I thought Halloween was Mischief Night.
Well, so yeah.
I don't know whether this, I mean, I'm quite familiar with American culture, went to American schools, lived in like New England, I lived in Boston and stuff, and I never heard of this, but you know, and
like the Purge, maybe.
Yeah, but this is 1975, so maybe it was a bigger thing in the 70s, but I didn't know that the 30th of October was a thing, right? So it was Mischief Night. Martha was grounded, but had convinced her mom to let her go out anyways. You know how you would do when you're a teenager, but it's a special occasion. But that night, Martha never came home. Her mom called her friend Helen Ix, who she had been with, and Helen said that Martha was with her earlier, and they were hanging out with the Skakels, Tommy and Michael. They live across the road basically across the road a little bit to the side, but you know, same street. They had been hanging out with those boys. The mom fell asleep while she was trying to wait up for Martha. And when she woke up, Martha was still not there. Martha was last seen leaving the Skakel house and crossing her own lawn, where she was attacked violently, so much so that the golf club that she was attacked with broke into pieces.
Oh my God.
And then this fact just made it a little bit extra sad. They had only moved, the Moxley family had only moved to Belle Haven the year before. It just, I don't know why, but it does make it sad, right? Like,
Yeah. Like that, you can imagine the guilt that the parents are going through. Like,
if we never moved.
if we hadn't moved, shouldn't have let her out. She was grounded anyway. Oh, horrible.
Oh, you would drive yourself insane, wouldn't you, with things like the what if? So let me tell you about the Skakels. Skakels. I don't really care if I'm pronouncing. It's one of those where I'm like, I don't actually care if I'm pronouncing this name right or wrong. I think it's Skakel. Rushton Skakel was a widow. That's the father. No, he's a widower then.
Yeah,
Rushton.
widower.
Yes. Rushton Skakel, the father, was a widower. He was the heir to a family fortune made from coal. He had two sons, Tommy and Michael. Rushton's sister was Ethel Skakel, who was the wife of the late Robert F. Kennedy. So here I was like, I'm gonna just get myself a little Kennedy family tree so that I can make sense of this whole malarkey. So I'm going to share that with you. Thank you, Reddit, because to save me time, you having done it for me. Share. So we've got here, tell me when you could see. So John F. Kennedy is obviously the one that we all are super familiar with. Then we've got where are we? So John F. Kennedy, who's married Jackie O, and they've had kids and blah, blah, blah. But then over here, we have one of John F. Kennedy's brothers, Robert F. Kennedy Sr., who's married to Ethel Skakel. And Ethel is the sister of Rushton, and therefore the aunt of Tommy and Michael Skakel, the teenagers involved in the story. So Robert F. Kennedy Sr. is their uncle. And
so wait, did Joseph and Rose have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? I don't know if there's any more past John F. Kennedy. 9 kids.
Some of these are the wives, I think you might be counting.
No, no, I'm just counting the green lines. So they had nine kids. Jesus.
Irish Catholic family, yeah.
Right.
So Robert F. Kennedy Sr. has had 2 kids as well, one of them being Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is the anti-vaxxer
who's in Trump's
cabinet, or whatever they call it in the States, for as the health representative. So that's great news, isn't it? But Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the cousin of Tommy and Michael Skakel, because he comes back. Yeah. So there you go. There we have the rather large Kennedy family tree. Get back to the story. So the night before Halloween, mischief night, the Skakel brothers were holding a little get together. They were regularly left unattended because their dad was, very busy businessman and traveled quite a lot, and they didn't have a mom. So Martha and her 2 friends, Jeffrey Burns and Helen Ix, had gone across to the Skakel house at around 8:45 p.m. And they all sat, this is so like wholesome 70s America. They sat in the driveway in the car listening to music. Martha and Tommy were being a bit flirty and apparently made out. So Martha and the older brother. At around 9:30, the Skakel brothers were talking about going to their other cousin's house, the Terrains. But Martha sort of dipped out of those plans because she had to get home because of her curfew. So, she probably knew, I better not push my luck because I've managed to get out of being grounded. But if I'm late, I'm going to be double grounded. So she went home at around 9:30. Her walk home, like I said, was basically just across the road, across her massive lawn, granted, but really not that far. She was first hit nearly on her doorstep. So she was so close to getting home safe. She ran away and then fell a few meters away. She bled there a little bit and then was dragged behind a tree where her body was found later. The golf club was broken into 4 pieces, but only 3 were found. The handle was never found. And that it was actually that bit of the golf club, sorry to be graphic, that she didn't die from being beaten by the golf club. She died from being stabbed in the neck by the broken handle of the golf club. So that piece was the piece that wasn't found. So whether the killer knew that maybe his fingerprints would be on the handle, or there would be more clues or something, or he ran away with holding it in panic and disposed of it somewhere, who knows? But that part has never been found. The golf club was a monogrammed ladies golf club from the Skakel home. But the Skakel boys said they were having a little party. They also regularly had little parties. And apparently they used to just have the golf clubs out, and they used to hit golf clubs off the back porch, sometimes at cars going by. So many people would have had access to those golf clubs. But it does tie them into the murder in some capacity. Ties their household in, you know? It's someone that they knew, if it's not them. But the police focused on the Skakels because they were the last 2 people to see her alive, the brothers. Tommy claimed that night he didn't go to his cousin's house, but instead, after drinking, he went in to do homework. So he's a teenager drinking on mischief night, and then he's like, right, better get that geometry. Yeah. So apparently he went
maybe it made him better.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, maybe if it was like some art homework or something. So he supposedly went in around about the time that Martha went home at around 9:30 to do his homework. And then at 10 p.m., he went and watched TV with their live-in tutor. And I'll talk about their live-in tutor. It's a guy called Ken Littleton. And this I found bizarre, right? So not that they had one. They were very wealthy. And like I said, Rushton, the father, traveled a lot. So he kind of got a live-in tutor / companion, like basically a governess, a nanny. What I think is funny is that, okay, so Tommy, the older brother, I want to say is like 13. Michael, the younger brother, Tommy, the older brother is about 17. And Michael, the younger brother, was like 14, 15, I think. So their live-in tutor was 23. Ken was 23, which is bizarre because it's like, it's only a handful of years older than them.
Yeah.
I think they've got friends that age, you know? And maybe that was the point. Let's get someone who can relate to them.
But can also buy them alcohol. It's over 21.
Yeah. It's just bizarre, isn't it? And like I said, I'll talk about Ken now. So he was hired as this companion. It's very Victorian, isn't it? And for me, a 23-year-old man is still a child himself. Yes. You know, it's definitely very young to be responsible for 2 teenage boys, not just in a school as their teacher, but as in their live-in babysitter and stuff.
Yeah.
He was around that night. So he also, in theory, had access to the clubs, right? And he doesn't have an alibi between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, the time that Martha was killed. But he could also just be a convenient outsider, like a convenient outsider to like scapegoat. But the more you look into this guy, the more you're like, what the fuck? 6 months later, Ken Littleton is arrested for burglary on Nantucket Island while having drunk alcohol and being on cocaine. It might just be an interesting fact, or it might be related. It might just be because he reacted really bad to this horrible thing. Because you know what? This day that this murder happened was the first day he moved into the house.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Can you imagine you move into your new live-in job, and that night, someone who was at the house gets murdered across the road, and basically everyone that lives in that house is now a suspect, right?
Yeah.
And you're 23.
Basically, it's going to freak you out.
So I'm not shocked that he went a little bit off the rails afterwards, because that is a lot to deal with, even if he was innocent. They managed to track down his ex-wife, because at some point he got married and then divorced. She had some not very nice things to say about him, but also I feel like
This is a 23-year-old.
no, he later after this murder. So when he was
Okay.
older than
How?
23. I don't know the
Okay.
exact dates, but later on in his life he got married.
And
Even
then
more
divorced.
later, divorced while they're making this documentary. They started dating when he was in his mid-20s, so after the murder. And then they were married. So he would have been in his mid-20s, late 70s. They were married 83. So he would have been like 33-ish when.
Yeah.
So 33-ish to 40-ish, they were married, right? He apparently never mentioned Martha during the marriage, except for after the divorce. He would mention it a bit more freely, like that this incident even happened. I'm not saying he said, I killed her. But I just think, first of all, we need to take everything she says with a pinch of salt because it is the ex-wife, you know?
Agreed.
But also, he does seem problematic, let's say. So he had taken lie detector tests many times, but failed. And we know that lie detector tests are queried in terms of their legitimacy, their validity, and their usefulness.
Yeah.
And also, they can quite often give you false results if the person taking the lie detector test is a substance user. And he may or may not have already started having a bit of an alcohol problem, cocaine problem, and so forth. So again, pinches of salt, right? According to his ex-wife, he had threatened her many times and was drinking a lot and would often have what she called psychotic breaks. And again, even if this is true, I can totally see why this incident, whether even if he was innocent, would fuck you up, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when talking to John Moxley, the Martha's older brother, she's got a brother who's 2 years older than her. He actually went to go visit Ken Littleton, the former live-in tutor, a few years later. And he said that Ken was having a breakdown. And he clearly went to go visit him to try to get some more answered, because by this point, there was still no one in jail. And I think that's a risky move because this is a potential suspect. You know what I mean? The brother of a murder victim going to privately see a potential suspect in another city. But apparently Ken Littleton kept on crying and maintaining his innocence. And John himself, the brother, is convinced of his innocence. But you know what I keep on thinking? This guy must have had the Skakels, a really powerful, wealthy, influential family, probably trying to divert attention away from Tommy and Michael onto someone else. Like I said, he's a very convenient outsider. So can you imagine that fucking over your head? Oh, the fucking Kennedies are coming to get me, right? And this is why it ties in with our Lou episode. You remember Lou had some not some nice things to say about Robert F. Kennedy Sr. And in this episode, I've got some very nice, not nice things to say about his son. And so me and Lou are going to be on the run from the Kennedys together, holding hands, skipping into the sunset.
And me with Trump.
Yeah. So if anything happens to any one of us, that's what happened.
You know why.
Yeah. So John, the brother, Martha's brother, says that Michael Skakel had a crush on Martha. He was 13 at the time, Michael Skakel. So he's 2 years younger than Martha, and he had a crush on her. He thinks that Michael saw Martha making out and stuff with his older brother, Tommy, and that he got angry about that. Apparently, Michael was already a functioning alcoholic by the age of 13.
Oh my God.
I mean, first of all, what do you have to function for at 13? Like, what do you have to show up for?
Doing your homework.
Well, now you've got a live-in tutor / homework doer. But anyway, Michael, on the evening of the murder, he claims that he came back from his cousin's. He went at 9:30 and came back at 11:30. As a reminder, Martha was murdered between 9:30 and 10 p.m. So according to this account, Michael was out of the area visiting his cousins with witnesses, the cousins and whoever who went there with, during the time period that Martha got murdered. So basically nothing happens with this case for so long because they're a bit of an impasse. You know, everyone supposedly has an alibi for the time. They don't have any other suspects or people of interest. And then in the 90s, DNA becomes a thing, and this 16-year-old case is reopened. But during this time of inactivity on the case, it's when Michael Skakel gets into some shit for driving offenses. I think they were drink driving offenses, but he's basically getting in trouble with the law again. And because he's like basically a Kennedy, rather than going to juvenile detention or anything like that, he gets sent to the Elan school, this horrible reform school, which, you know, in people's defense at the time, no one knew the level of abuse and unethical behaviors that were going on at the school. But that's how Michael ended up there, and that's where he popped up in our Elan school thing, because it's at the school that he confessed, in major quotation marks, to killing Martha. So that's not me having judgment about whether or not he did it. By the end of this, we'll have a little chat about who you think is the most likely suspect, because I don't know. But I do have massive reservations about how these confessions were extracted at the Elan school.
100%, yeah.
If you remember, this one came out in a general meeting, which sounds lovely. Well, actually, no, meetings are awful, aren't they? But it was basically all of your peers standing around you, yelling at you, hitting you violently, doing, you know, just yelling abuse. And the teachers or the supervisors or whatever the people were called at the Elan school had already told everyone in that room, this guy has was involved in a murder case, and he's definitely killed her. What do you all say? And they're all like, you killed Martha, you killed Martha. So after hours of that shit, he was like, yeah, I killed Martha. But that's a forced confession, you know? So it just literally means nothing. Absolutely nothing, right?
Nothing at all.
So, but at this point, when DNA starts becoming more prevalent in terms of crime fighting, Rushton Skakel pays a private detective agency called Sutton Associates to do a full review of a case. So basically pays a private detective company to investigate a case. And kind of with the view of seeing how his sons come out looking, right? The full investigation with all of the resources available, more resources than the police will have, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, private detective agency funded by a rich guy to do an investigation. And so you could tell he just wants to know, like, how do my sons look in this? Are they in trouble? Do we need to do damage control? At this point in the documentary, there's a guy called Mark Furman, who's a former murder detective in LA. You know how we love our former murder detectives. And LA must have been a fucking crazy place.
Yeah, can't imagine.
He's one of the few people that have actually seen this report, because remember, it's a private document. It's not like a court document that might be available to the public. This is a private bit of work that was commissioned, so no one is ever needs to see it, I presume, right? But he had seen it, and that is because it got leaked.
No, of course.
Yeah, I mean, human nature, right? In the report, Tommy admits to having sex with Martha that night. So it wasn't just that they were flirting. It wasn't just that they were cuddling or being a bit, you know, or that they made out. Tommy says they had sex.
Okay.
So presumably, well, possibly meaning that she will have his DNA on him, her, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Michael, who initially said he had left at 9:30 to go to his cousin's house and then came back at 11, he's now saying that he went to bed, but he couldn't sleep. Oh, wait for this. This is just like, I had to ask several of my guy friends about this because I needed to know, is this a thing that guys do?
Oh, no.
See, he couldn't sleep. Remember, he's 13. So maybe that explains some of the stupidity of this. went to Martha's house, threw pebbles at her window, but got no response. And actually, it was her brother's window. So he masturbated in the tree that he was in.
No, for fuck's sake.
Do guys masturbate in trees? I mean, I guess some might, but like, but basically, what people are thinking now when they get access to this report or the findings in this report is that both Tommy and Michael are kind of explaining away why their DNA might be on her or at the crime scene. Because that tree where he masturbated in, I can't believe I'm saying those words, was the tree she was found under. So
that's convenient.
Very convenient. Puts him at the scene of the crime, you know, puts his semen at the scene of the crime. Yeah. So then nothing happened still for another few years, right? In January 2000, so that's 25 years after Martha's murdered, Michael Skakel is arrested and charged with the murder. He's 39 at the time. And 2 years later, the jury finds him guilty and sentences him to 20 years to life.
Okay.
Why was he finally brought to trial after all this time? It's basically because he had been making incriminating statements over the years. So I'm assuming the prosecutors, the police or whatever, have been like accumulating these statements because they don't have like that, you know, the what's it, the smoking gun, the thing, you know what I mean? They have to compile a whole bunch of circumstantial evidence in the absence of DNA, a confession, whatever. So they're just like piling it all up. And I guess in 2000, they managed to get enough circumstantial evidence to bring him to trial. 3 of these statements that they have records of Michael Skakel saying could be considered actual confessions. So he had motive. He's jealous because Martha's involved with his brother. He has opportunity for sure, access to the murder weapon, lives across the road, supposedly at the scene. After Martha's death, though, like I said, he'd gone to the Elan school. So after Martha's death, he'd gone to the Elan school, and that's where most of his confessions took place. You had, just bear with me, a few people coming out of the school saying that while they were in the school with Michael, he had made statements. Like you have a guy called Gregory Coleman who said that while they were in the school together, Michael told him that he had made advances towards Martha, which she rejected. So he drove her skull in with a golf club. I mean, is it hearsay though when you've got like someone saying what someone else said?
Yeah, pretty much. Or it's third party evidence, isn't it? It's not
the strongest, is it?
No.
And like I said, a lot of stuff that came out of the ring and the general meetings and so forth. But then to make matters worse, again, I don't know whether Skakel is innocent or not, but there's so many just problematic things in this case that it deflects from whether or not he's actually innocent or guilty. Because Gregory Coleman, the one who said like, look, he confessed to me, admits that he was on heroin while testifying.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Because you remember we said that so many of the people that left the Elan school left with like substance abuse problems and all sorts. Totally understandable.
You'd need something to get through it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because what they experienced, awful. And they were already troubled. That's why they were there. And then it just compounded it, right? But yeah, he admitted he was on heroin while testifying. So, and he died of a drug overdose before the trial even started.
Wow, okay.
You know, it does make it very easy to question his credibility as a witness, unfortunately. And we still now have no physical evidence tying Michael Skakel to the scene. But apparently, and you'll probably know the difference about this more than I will, apparently Coleman was not high at the testimony that mattered, where the defense could cross-examine him. So his statement was allowed to stand. But I mean, obviously with massive red flags over his credibility,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that probably just means, so you give two lots of evidence. You have your initial evidence that you give where your team will question you, and then the evidence where you get cross-examined by the prosecution. So maybe they're
Or the
saying that,
defense, depending on who you're witness for, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But when the other side is cross-examining you, maybe he wasn't high for that.
Yeah. So that's the one that he supposedly wasn't high for. So the judge decided that his statements would be allowed to stand. But again, massive red flags about his credibility. And by the time we get to trial, he's died of a heroin overdose to kind of like emphasize the fact that he might not have been, compos mentis when he was saying what he said. And what about the other students who waited almost 20 years to come forward? We have Chuck Segan, who was interviewed. He was also at the Elan School from 78 to 79 when he was 20 years old. And he was there because he was taking lots of amphetamines. It's like, oh, you're doing drugs in the 70s. No shit. Wasn't everyone? Like, but I mean, he must have been bad. He must have been bad. But he was there with Michael Skakel. And he said that Michael had confessed to him, but he only admitted this in 1996, and he claims that he was scared to tell anyone because of the Kennedy connection, which is a very real and legitimate fear.
It's valid.
I think. Yeah,
very valid.
He wasn't going to ever say anything, but he saw Martha's mum, Dorothy, on TV making an appeal, and it just, got to him. So he did eventually come forward. But then apparently there were some doubts about him as well, because he was known while being at the school for telling tall tales and whatever. And it's like, yeah, as a 20-year-old,
ago.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference being like a braggy young guy and coming forth and be like, look, this guy confessed to murder for me, to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, there was a couple of confessions from Michael in front of lots of people, but these were sort of during periods of what they called confrontation therapy, right? When you have someone, lots of people yelling at you, screaming at you, blah, blah, blah. Even the owner of the school was there regularly when Michael was having his confrontation therapy. And he was the one that was constantly going on about a girl that was murdered in his neighborhood and you probably did it and blah, blah, blah. And it made me wonder, like, why would the school want this? They're basically forcing confessions, but I wonder if for them it's like, oh, look, even a murderer, we managed to break them and build them back up. I don't know. It's very weird. And then another bit of evidence, was kind of random, I think, quite an unusual piece of evidence. Tell me if you've ever come across this. He was recording himself talking, Michael Skakel, because he was going to be having a book coming out. So he was doing a lot of recording and talking about his life and his stories and whatever to be passed on to the ghostwriter. So those tapes where he was talking about that evening got submitted into evidence.
Okay.
So quite an unusual thing, isn't it?
I guess not every criminal has a book written for them.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, so it's probably why you don't have to get it very often. So they had a guy called Wes Clark come on and speak, and I'm gonna do some online stalking and get him on the show because he's a statement analyst. So like analyzing language and stuff like that. I love that about confessions or whatever.
Yeah.
So they had him listening to the tapes and giving his reactions. Skakel was talking about how they loved Mischief Night and Halloween and everything. Yeah, a lot of American teens love it, because it's like naughty party time. Who doesn't? I do. He said he was trying to convince Martha to go to the cousin's house to watch Monty Python, but Martha was supposed to go home, so she wasn't having any of it. When Michael Skakel is talking about the beginning part of the evening, Wes Clark, the statement analyst, believes him because of his tone, his cadence, the level of detail and everything, he believes him. But then there's a point where it turns, and Wes thinks at that point he's not telling the truth anymore. It's when Michael says he came home from his cousin's, couldn't sleep, got horny, in his words, and then
fuck's sake.
These are his quotes: got horny, and then I kept thinking about this lady up the road. So he was spying on her, hoping to see her naked. I mean, I guess this is before the internet porn days.
Yeah. Do you know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of Back to the Future with Marty McFly's dad peeping Tom.
Oh, yeah.
And he gets hit by the car.
Yeah. It's just something creepy about it, right?
Yeah, very.
And he says about his 13-year-old self, he was drunk, so he couldn't get it up. So he decided to go find Martha because, in his words, Martha likes me. I'll go and get a kiss from Martha. And it's like,
wait, but that's already contradicted itself, though, because he was trying to explain him semen being there, but he couldn't get it up.
Yeah. Well, apparently he was in another tree first before going to Martha's tree. He couldn't get it up in tree number 1. So he's going to go see Martha. But it's like, what? I'll go and get a kiss from Martha. Martha, who's been making out with your brother all evening. You know? Like, on what planet would she want that to happen? Anyways, he was drunk, right? So he's clearly not thinking logically. He climbs up the cedar trees, yelling her name, but it's her brother's window. And at this point, he keeps stating, I remember doing this, I remember doing that, which Wes Clark thinks is odd. It's like when you say, honestly, I blah blah blah,
Yeah.
It's like you're just justifying and trying to sound.
Do you know what the lawyer speak for that is?
Tell me the lawyer. Talk lawyer to me.
Well, it's basically when you're like obviously hiding behind emails and letters, etc. But when you're just like basically you want to say fuck off, you're talking shit with respect.
With respect is such a good one. If anyone starts a sentence with respect,
there's no respect there.
The next thing that's coming out of their mouth is going to be a very flowery insult. Yeah.
It's like, with respect, your client is a piece of shit.
Absolute knob end. Yeah. So again, in these tapes for his ghostwriter, he's again stating that he went up this tree, he masturbated. So, if my DNA happens to be there, it's not because I killed her, it's because I was wanking in a tree.
And it literally happened to be over her body. I was wanking over her body.
Because in theory, if this is to be believed, which I don't, she was dead under the tree already. So yeah. Again, it seems like they're just trying to justify why you might find physical clues.
Do you think, I suppose the other side of it might be that he may not have had anything to do with it, but was literally like just trying to cover all base. I mean, it's pretty extreme covering of a base, but like, I don't know. It's so out there.
It's so bizarre.
And obviously they didn't even find his DNA there, because if they did, he'd be banged to rights.
Yeah. And even then, I think even without giving the masturbating up the tree story, he lived across the road. There's, depending on what they found, there's probably loads of other justifications. Like, if it was Michael, would he need to hide the handle in case there's fingerprints on it? Considering it came from his house and they used to play with those golf clubs anyways, he could justify away why there's fingerprints on it. Also, he's a drunk 13-year-old. Is he thinking about these things at the time? You know what I mean?
And his brother's DNA is way more likely to be there than his.
Exactly. But he's justified it by saying we had consensual relationship that night,
Yeah.
So anyways, Wes says that Michael Skakels' sense of detail is gone when he continues with the story from here on in. He says it is a straight walk across the lawn to his house, but he feels like he shouldn't go there in the dark. He says he later found out she'd been murdered in the exact spot where he'd been yelling her name, and he recalls this with no emotion. And this would have been one of the biggest moments of his life, right? I mean, he's 15, and his neighbor friend, who he said that he liked, maybe fancied, like, you know, whatever, who he was hanging out with that night, has been found murdered right opposite his house. Like,
and also, surely he would have seen something. I mean, I suppose it meant timing. We don't know when.
Well, according to
he
him,
wanked up a tree.
According to him, though, the time that she was murdered, he was at his cousin's. He was far away.
Oh, yeah.
His reaction and his concern is not to tell people where he was in the middle of night, or they might blame him. Wes Clark, the statement analyst, thinks he is lying about the later part of his story because, like I said, there's no sensory detail. His storytelling style just changes dramatically. But we've got here Michael admitting in his own voice, recording it, to being at the crime scene. The defense team tried to keep this tape out of the trial, but failed because obviously it's quite incriminating. Another line of defense that they used was that he was a smaller 15-year-old boy. This I didn't get, because then they showed pictures of him and I was like, he looks like quite a well-built, is he 13 or 15? But, you know, like teenage
13,
boy.
yeah.
They were saying he would have been physically incapable of an attack of this style. And Laura Coates, the presenter of this documentary, she then looked at the weapon, because they were saying he was too slight and too small and weedy to basically attack someone with a golf club so violently that the golf club would shatter. She's looking at the weapon, and obviously we hear about cases where people get otherworldly strength when they need to lift a car off their baby or whatever. It does happen. But she was like, she had this golf club, same kind of make and model, smacking it against concrete and everything, and it just was not breaking at all. But then she just literally steps on the end with her high heel on and just snaps it. So smashing it is not an easy way to break this golf club into 4 places. But like bending it and snapping it, piss easy. So easily could have been done by someone, you know? And remember, it wasn't even the initial attack by the golf club, the beating by it, that was the sort of
the fatal blow
that killed her. Exactly. Yeah. And also when you snap the golf club, the edge is super sharp.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
just vicious. Yeah. So actually what this means, though, is that this might not be a like frenzied attack as people thought. It could be quite a calm and calculated attack, and one that's totally doable by a skimpy Michael Skakel, you know? This, I'm so excited about hearing your point of view on this, right? I don't know if this happens in England, or it probably does, but they interviewed Mickey Sherman, who was the lead defense attorney. So Michael Skakel's lead lawyer, right? Is that weird?
No, that's very weird. Well, for this country, it's very weird.
What, that he's doing an interview on a documentary? Or
I mean, there's client confidentiality for a start, where you're not really supposed to. I mean, it does happen. But
well, let me tell you how their relationship progressed during and after the trial. He said that the biggest argument in his defense was Michael's character. He was such a nice guy that he couldn't have done this. It's like, yeah, no wonder he went to fucking jail. That's a shit defense. It's a shit defense, isn't it?
It's really bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. But I was just thinking about people being interviewed. Like, I watched that I can never say their name. Mendes documentary, and all of the lawyers were, apart from their defense lawyer wasn't on it. Yeah, I think probably is.
Or if they agree to only say stuff that's in the public domain anyways, because it's maybe to court. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'd like to think they at least ask their client or former client, do you mind if I do this?
Yeah.
But who knows? So his lawyer was saying, he's a sweet kid. He's not capable of doing it. That's not a defense, is it? I'm not wrong, am I?
Absolutely not. No, you're not wrong at all. That's just, I mean, you do
That's,
get character witnesses and you can,
of course. But
but
he's saying this is his
no,
biggest argument in his defense.
that's no, he's got nothing then. He's
Yeah.
literally got nothing.
So, but then how did they get Michael Skakel out? Because they had him acquitted. Remember? If they have
Yeah.
such a shit defense, it's because Michael and his team started attacking Mickey Sherman, his lead defense lawyer, in his performance and claiming that Michael Skakel did not have adequate defense in his
Right.
case, which I
True.
mean, sounds true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's his constitutional right to get a decent defense. So he claimed that Michael Skakel claimed that Tommy, his own brother, was not brought in as a possible suspect by Mickey Sherman. That would have at least put in some reasonable doubt to get him off.
Yeah.
Apparently Mickey Sherman didn't really challenge the Elam School confessions enough, the ones that he confessed under duress, and that he didn't call a witness who could confirm his alibi, because you remember he was supposedly with his cousins.
I mean, he does sound like a shit lawyer, to be fair.
Yeah. The judge agreed and overturned his conviction and ordered a new trial. So at this point, he's free, but he's going to face another trial. And he's released on $1 million bail, which I imagine is peanuts for the family, you know? And just bear with me. Yeah, so he was asked, because I was like, what the fuck? Like, because this guy is saying such nice things about Michael Skakel, even though Michael Skakel fucking threw him right under the bus.
Yeah.
Right? So Laura, the host, Laura Coates, she asked him, how does he feel about being scapegoated? And he says it's normal. It's the last resort in the defense to turn around and blame the lead defense lawyer for not doing a good enough job. But that must be super damaging to your career, especially in like a high profile case.
Yeah, definitely.
More so than losing the case in the first place, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Not only have you lost the case, but now you're being brought in for being incompetent.
I don't think, and I'm not a criminal lawyer, but I don't think that you can do that in this country. You can appeal like on points of law and stuff like that, but that's more about like the decision that the judge has come to, and like if they've chosen like the wrong law and stuff like that. But I don't think you can say basically my lawyer was shit, so I want a retrial.
Especially when you hired the lawyer. I can understand it more in a case where you've been appointed a defense team.
Yeah.
And they are genuinely shit, which I'm sure happens. But if you're a rich guy and you hired this lawyer,
yeah,
why wouldn't you just fire him and hire another lawyer? Like, no one's forcing him to be your lawyer. Like,
no, exactly.
Oh, so it's just bizarre. And they were talking about how this is a very common practice, and that the lawyers basically throw themselves under the bus. They know that they might have to then go through being accused of being incompetent to get their client off.
Because like I said, a lawyer in the States.
Yeah, because this guy was talking about Michael Skakel like they're best buddies. Like this was an agreed strategy, you know, between friends.
And also it was 11 years later. So
yeah, bizarre.
Yeah.
Oh, so Skakel gets free after 11 years in 2013, and he's technically facing another trial at some point. Obviously, the Moxley family are like super disappointed because they think the killer is Michael Skakel. So now they're like, well, he's not in jail. No one else is in jail. So no one's in jail for the death of our daughter, you know? The mother, by the way, she comes in and she says that she heard people talking at the time of the murder or soon after. So she actually thinks that Michael was in a frenzy, and then someone with a cooler head came along, like an accomplice, a friend, a brother, allegedly, and helped him like clean up, you know, dragging Martha's body along to the tree to be hidden a bit, taking the handle of the golf club. Yeah. So what are the alternative theories, right? Is it Michael? Is it not? Who else could it be? Because the police, it's quite obvious, did not explore all of them fully. And the prosecutors definitely didn't. Um, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., anti-vaxxer, he actually wrote a book called Framed, which is about his cousin, Michael Skakel, and all of this. I mean, they must not have been super happy with someone in their family basically doing time for murder. But Robert F. Kennedy, he was annoyed that they hadn't delved deep enough into Ken Littleton, the tutor, you know, especially because he'd failed these polygraph tests and whatever. And he was prone to drug use and emotional breakdowns and so forth. Another suspect, and this is their cousin, Tommy and Michael's cousin, saying another suspect was Tommy. And he's not saying that they think Tommy might have actually done it, but the fact that they didn't look into Tommy at all implies that weird. It's proof that they did not look at all of the possibilities. They didn't go down the investigative route and all the possible options, because they're saying like, of course Tommy would have been a suspect. So why didn't they fucking look at him? And who, if they're not looking at him, who else are they ignoring? So because Tommy was pretty much the last person to see her alive. And he didn't really have an alibi for much of the time that she was murdered. He was doing his homework drunk on mischief night, and then he was hanging out with the live-in tutor who was also an alcoholic on drugs. So you know, there was also a lady who had come forth. She was a resident. She came home at 11 p.m. that night, and she was right next door or right behind or whatever, like touching, her property was touching the Moxley house, right? And she could hear people in her garage talking. And this is 11 o'clock, so right after she's been murdered. She told the police about it at the time, I think even before she knew that Martha had been murdered. It's obviously a gated community, strange men in her garage. Of course she's calling the police. But no one followed up on it.
Oh, for God's sake.
And it's not like they could say, oh, sorry, we got sidetracked by the murder, because that fucking clearly related.
Relevant. Yeah.
And again, if they're ignoring that, if they're not following up on that lead, or they're not looking into those potential suspects, who else are they ignoring?
Yeah.
So both at this point, both sides, both the Skakels and the Kennedies and the Moxleys are getting really pissed off for the police not doing their job, losing a bunch of evidence potentially by just not investigating properly, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's fucking up everyone, isn't it? But then we have, so random, the cameos that appear in this. A guy called Tony Bryant comes forth, again, like in the 2000s. Tony Bryant is Kobe Bryant's cousin. But he's also former classmate of Skakel, Michael Skakel. Now, so he knew people in that area. He used to hang out with a lot of them and so forth. But he was also friends with people in New York, in the Bronx. So basically, what we're saying here is that he had very wealthy friends and seemed to have gone to a wealthy school, but also was living in the Bronx and had his like hometown, friends that were probably not as wealthy as the Skakels. Tony could kind of cross that class divide fairly easily. He probably knew how to act accordingly and appropriately in that group if he's going to a school that I can only presume is a private school. Maybe he got a scholarship or something. But every now and then he'd bring friends along with him that were, not used to that scene, let's say. Two of these friends were Adolf and Bert.
Oh my God.
It's like problem number one.
Yes.
Because this is like very soon after World War II. Do you know what I mean? That this kid would have been
Yeah.
born. We're talking
Yeah.
1975 and he's a teenager.
Yeah. Too soon. Too soon.
I mean, you could argue almost any time would be too soon, but this is very soon, you know? Anyways,
Yeah.
it's actually not the worst thing about this guy, so we'll move on. They were from the Bronx and they had come to Greenwich to hang out with Tony and some of his rich pals. Adolf, how do I say that word? I try to avoid
I'd
it.
say Adolf. I'd say
Say Adolf.
Adolf.
Do you know why I'm saying Adolf? Maybe I should say Adolf because that's how they say it in the documentary because he's American and that's how Americans say it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll flip between the two. I'll just remove all consistency from my speaking. Just cause the smoke and mirrors blur and yeah. Adolf had a crush on Martha for months apparently. And the three of them were there that night. So Tony Bryant, Adolf, and Bert.
Bert.
Bert, another not great name really for a teenage boy. Tony says that Adolf is the one who killed her. He came forth because before the original trial of Michael Skakels, so before Michael went to jail for this, he had come forth and talked to the police about someone who'd actually confessed to the murder. It never came up in the trial. And the story is credible, apparently.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's true. It's credible, right? There's a difference, isn't there? Basically, it's not instantly dismissible. He said that they all had access to the clubs because they were regularly at Skakels' house and they had been there that night. And Adolf was basically sick of getting nicely brushed off by Martha. Martha was lovely, apparently. So he would like stick it on her and she would just very kindly, as nicely as possible, turn
No,
him
thank
down.
you.
Yeah. So apparently, according to Tony, he started telling loads of people that he was going to go caveman on her. Well, makes me feel sick.
Yeah.
When Tony saw them on Monday, so a couple of days later, he said that he did go caveman on her, Adolf. And by that, he means like brutally attack her in a sexual way as well.
Great guy.
Yeah. So why did Tony only come forward like decades later? He says it's because he was, a black kid in a very wealthy white area, and he was worried he was going to be accused of murder.
Yeah.
He's literally saying that on that night he had golf clubs in his hand as well. And his own mother came forth and said, "I told him not to go to the police because I knew he would just get done for it, even though he wanted to go to the police to say my friend confessed to it." I mean, I was going to say it's a different time. It's the 70s, but let's be honest. You'd probably have the same concern as a young black man if this case was happening today.
Absolutely.
There's a private investigator who actually investigated and interviewed Adolf. And the investigator said that Adolf could not keep his story straight. He changed the time that he left the area several times, 9 p.m., midnight, blah, 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 and then said that he wasn't even there at all. He said, "I checked my books and I wasn't even in the area at the time." I'm sorry, what book is a teenage boy having,
Fuck's sake.
Yeah. Robert F. Kennedy, who's, doing this campaigning for his cousin Michael Skakel, actually thinks that Tony's story is the truth and that this guy Adolf had done it. Because there were I don't know how I feel about this. There were two hairs found on the blanket covering Martha. One was from an African American source and one was from an Asian descent source, which literally describes Adolf and Bert. But then I was like, what is this blanket? It's a police blanket that they put over Martha when they found her. And it's like, well, unless you're going to tell me that this was sterilized, dry cleaned, whatever, before you put it over Martha.
Yeah.
I don't really see how that's evidence. I'm guessing that was in the boot of a fucking car that loads of criminals go
exactly.
in and out of.
Yeah.
And also there's been a lot of controversy around how accurate using hair is for identifying people. So, But again, Kennedy is probably quite rightly saying that a lot of evidence was lost. A lot of the evidence that could prove Skakel innocent or that these boys were culpable, a lot of it was lost. It does sound like this investigation was mismanaged, especially right at the beginning, the most important
100%.
time, which
Yeah.
just fucked up everyone, because
Yeah.
potentially you've got innocent people being dragged into a murder case and the real guilty people being let off or whatever, or and just too many questions, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Kennedy was saying that when Tony Bryant came forth, the case against Michael Skakel was already underway, and that the police and prosecutors would rather jail an innocent person than admit they were wrong. They would want to save face. And it's such a jaded way of thinking it, but I'm sure in some cases it's true, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sad but true.
But also, so Tony Bryant, while being recorded and interviewed, is happy to say that his two friends had confessed to doing this murder, but he won't make a statement under oath. So what does that mean,
Yeah. I suppose it's difficult to go against your friends though, isn't it?
There is a really, really cringy scene, and it's with Michael Sherman again. You remember the lawyer that got thrown under the bus, and Laura Coates, like I said, former federal prosecutor, also a Black lady. She asks, bear with me. She asks, why wasn't Tony Bryant maybe given immunity to come forth and immunity for any of his involvement if he actually went to trial and you know what I mean, and under oath explained that he thought his friends had done it, they confessed, blah blah blah. And Michael Sherman goes, oh, the two Black guys did it defense? Like that's he said it in a way that that's a regular defense that we use, like a regular play that they use, if you can't find any other defense, find a Black guy to blame it on. And you can see Laura Coates, you can see her back going up. Do you know what I mean?
Unsurprisingly.
But again, I'm sure, especially, during the 70s era, in the early 2000s when he's in trial, very easily done.
Yeah.
But he does say, Mickey Sherman, he does say something which I can totally see as being a big problem. He says, you can't give the judge a buffet table of guys who might have done it.
Yeah, also true.
But then also, if you do that, you do plant the seed of like reasonable doubt. So you don't have to, in defending your client, you don't have to prove who the other person might have been who did it. You just have to prove that other people there's evidence that other people could have done it,
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a head fuck, this case.
Yeah.
So today, where are we today? The brother, John, again, has been questioning why Tony hasn't been offered immunity to talk about the case in court, why more DNA testing hasn't been done, and why more analysis hasn't been done on these two very convenient hairs,
Yeah.
And where does Dorothy, the mother, stand? Like I said, she thinks Skakel did it. She thinks potentially he had an accessory, he had an accomplice, but apparently the statute of limitations has expired on an accessory. Like the murderer can still be brought to trial for this, but if there was an accomplice, the statute of limitations has passed. And I don't know how you as a lawyer feel about the statute of limitations, but I hate it. I can kind of understand it. But when someone can't get done for a rape because X amount of years has gone past.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things like,
oh, is that my fault?
Can you hear me?
Hang on a second. And then I desperately want to hear what you think about statute of limitations. Oh, now I think I can hear you. Say words.
Hello.
Hello. Tell me what you think about the statute of limitations.
I agree that there shouldn't be an end date for when somebody can be prosecuted for doing something, but I also feel like if you were innocent and they were trying to, pin it on you, having to live with that for an infinite amount of time also doesn't seem fair.
No, exactly. I get that. And also that some evidence and the people's memories and stuff like that fade
Mm,
over time. But then also you have developments in DNA and science, whatever, which is the
yeah,
reason
yeah,
why
it's
you.
true.
So it's just bonkers. But like, when you hear about someone being let off for a murder because even though DNA is now proving that they were 100%, well, they were probably the murderer, but the statute of limitations has gone by,
Yeah.
or the rapist or
No,
whatever.
yeah, I agree. I agree. It's bullshit.
Do we have statutes of limitation here in the UK? Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know about murder, but I do know like with other, I mean, even employment law cases, you've only got 3 months to six
Yeah.
months to bring a claim after the
I
incident.
mean, that's a
So
crazy short time, isn't it?
it's good though.
Yeah. But I mean,
It is a short amount of time, but
when you think about like how you might need some mental time to process an incident, get your shit together, figure out the
yeah.
process and the procedure for raising a claim,
I mean,
quite quick.
you can extend it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, from an employer, I mean, I am just looking at the employer point of view here, but the statute, that time limit of how long you have to bring a case is a godsend a lot of times because you know exactly at that point that they can no longer bring a claim against
Yeah.
you.
But it's
But
just a
yeah, I get what you're
very
saying.
it's very weird. It's a I don't know. It's a very weird
Mm,
policy.
yeah.
And I mean, in this case, it means that even if they manage, because Michael Skakel still faces a retrial. Nothing has been
Yeah.
done
Still
on it.
going on.
Nothing's been done on it. There's no date set. It might never get raised again. But even if they prove he's done it and they prove that he had an accomplice, that accomplice will never get done for it.
Yeah.
It's
But that
bonkers.
also has to be a fucking Kennedy thing. Like, how is it that I mean, I feel for him because he's got this hanging over him, but how is it that it hasn't been brought to trial yet? Like,
I
that's
know.
batshit.
And also, when you get proved, if you get proven innocent, you want it to be in a way that no one can ever question it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that's it. I've been proven innocent. Can we all please fucking move on? But because there's been so many weird things in this case and so many missteps, even when if hopefully they convict someone
Yeah.
at some point, whether it's Michael or someone else, hopefully they finally get the person and that person has to do life. But even if that happens, there's going to still be loads of doubts, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just one big fuck up
Unfortunately.
after the next.
Yeah. And all these extra factors like Kennedy involvement
Yeah.
and these like disadvantaged black youths that have now come into the
Mm,
scene versus these very wealthy white people.
yeah.
So the one thing we do know is that whoever did it, they are not in jail at the moment because there's no one in jail for it.
Yeah.
Which is
Batshit.
really, really sad. Really, really sad
Yeah.
case. So that is the case of Martha Moxley.
I hated it.
I hated it too. I hated it too. So let's lighten the mood a little bit. Why not?
Let's please. Yeah.
So we met an awesome lady when we went to CrimeCon this year. Her name was Karen, and she was fabulous, wasn't she? She
We
does,
love you, Karen.
we do. She is mixed underscore up underscore dolly underscore on Instagram. Have a look if you want to see some fucking fabulous pole fitness stuff and pole dancing and in amazing costumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so have a little look at that. But she's applied to date. Let's see who she's applied to date. She's applied to date you, Emma, and only you.
Oh, love you, Karen.
So she's based in Surrey, which is good. That's fairly local.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. One thing we know about her that she's not put in the application form, but we know that she's got a bulldog. She's got a French bulldog called Aggie.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
cute.
super cute dog. So when we asked her what's in your fridge now, she said beer, wine, cheese, and carrots for Aggie. And little paws, doggy paw
Love
prints
it.
emoji.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
I give mine frozen carrots. So mine are in the freezer.
Yeah. So fair enough. Um, perfect first date. Anything that doesn't involve sitting still for ages. Do you have any crazy exes? Not enough. Are they crazy because of you? Who knows? Ah, I wish we'd known this when we met her, because I totally would have made her do this. Weird fact about you. I can fit my fist in my mouth.
Oh, wow. Didn't she also do the splits at CrimeCon? Didn't
Yes,
we
she
do that in
did.
the pub? Yeah.
Yes. We were
Skills.
very drunk. Oh, she was fabulous. There's the
Yeah.
things we could learn from this woman. Some things you like: tattoos, cheese, beer, and being an antisocial social person. Yes, that's the perfect,
Yeah. Totally feel
basically
you there.
introvert, extrovert person, right? When
Yeah.
you're with your people, life and soul.
I mean, that's us, basically.
Yeah. And when you're not with your people,
Don't talk to us.
just basically sleep,
It's
even if
probably
you're in
why we're
public.
single.
Yeah. What have we got? Last time you cheated on a partner, never. Last time you cheated on your taxes. Taxes cheat on me.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Feel you.
Um, anything else we should know? Anything you'd like to tell us? I'm applying to date Emma as Dee saw all I have to give on our first date. This is because we got in the bathroom and got naked together to show each other our tattoos within probably 2 hours of meeting each other for the first time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But wait, I think you've missed a question,
Which one?
which is the most important question.
Turtle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite Ninja Turtle? Raphael. But she hasn't said why. So you can ask her on your first date.
Okay. I will.
What do you think? I get to score the application if it's not an application to date me? I don't think so. I think it's all
You
you.
should. I
But
think
it
you
doesn't
should, though.
but it
But
doesn't
obviously, I'm not going to make any decisions without running them by you.
I'll tell you
Obs.
what, why don't you give it a score and I'll tell you if I agree or not. And I'll just have like influence, but it's mainly your decision as she's applying to date you.
Okay. I mean, I think it's a 10.
I think so too. She could
Yeah,
be perfect for you, Emma.
I agree. But the only thing that I'm not so sure about is the beer, because we know, I mean, Linda's
No, but
changing my mind on beer. She
Linda
has
is
wine.
slowly introducing you to beers that you actually do like. And also
Yeah,
remember, Karen's got wine in her fridge.
yeah,
We
and beer.
It's
No,
like with
that's
the pizza
okay.
thing. We don't care what they have in their own beer, in their own glass, or on their own pizza, as long as they're
True.
providing you with the drink and the pizza that you want,
This is so true.
right?
So true. Yeah, okay, I'm down.
Karen, that's a 10. Well done.
Love it.
All right, so a couple of things I want to say before we go. First of all, we have all of our full-length videos. I just had a heart attack because I thought for a split second I hadn't pressed record.
No, you did. You're
Yeah, I
good.
know.
I would tell you if you didn't.
I need a moment to recover. I was like, are we gonna have to do that all again? I'm so tired. Okay. We did press record. I wanted to just say that we have all of our full length episodes, unedited, video episodes on YouTube. So if you like to watch things instead of hear things, you can do that on YouTube. And also we have merch for sale. We have our events. We're on socials. We post little teasers of our episodes. So do just follow us. Oh, and also apply to date us or give us relationship advice. We're running low
Yeah.
on, for some reason, not very many people have
I
applied to
mean,
date us. I don't know.
rude.
We
Just so
even,
rude.
do you know what I think at our events we should do is tell people literally stand over them. This is what I used to do at fundraising events when I organized fundraising events. I'd literally be like, here's the text code to donate a fiver. Do it now. I want you all to get out your phones. If I don't see a phone in your hand, sending in a £5 donation, I'm gonna name and shame you from my stage with my mic. So maybe we need to do that at our events.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm okay with shaming someone into filling in an application form online to date me in front of me.
Yeah.
God, we're dicks.
Me too. I got called aggressive last night, so
no, no, not aggressive, intimidating.
Yeah, I was trying to get them to stay for the event. I was like, maybe.
And that's how you know that those people are not our people.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like the least intimidating person ever, but there you go.
Yeah, you really are. And I'm happy those people didn't stay for our event.
Yeah, fuck them.
Because the people at our events are awesome. Shout out to Joanna. You're awesome. And Kev, her husband, they come regularly. They're so good. Nina and Simone. Yes, they're sisters. And yes, they're called Nina and Simone. And their dad, they come regularly. Pat and Lisa, they came along with Puppy Freddie. And Leslie popped up along as well from Midwich Cuckoos. We had, who else did we have? Gray and Frenchie. Yeah. We had
they were awesome.
Gorgeous couple who, and I feel so bad, I forgot their names. Because by the time I introduced myself to them, I was quite drunk because those Christmas stouts, they strong.
The mulled cider.
Oh my God, it was delicious.
So good.
Yeah, that wasn't very strong, but
we drank enough of it for it to be
when you drink
strong.
a lot, when you drink a lot of it, it adds up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does.
I think both of us had a moment last night where we were like, oh, we're drunk. Are you drunk, Emma? I'm drunk. Yeah. Anyways, they were a gorgeous, gorgeous couple that had come to the Halloween thing as well. And the guy told me about Japanese video YouTube channel about Japanese true crime. So I'm really excited about following that. But they were amazing. They've been before. Just lovely. Just lovely people.
Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and thanks to someone who came to the first night, a guy, I think his name was Oz. I have a Christmas decoration to put up in my house.
Awesome.
A single decoration. Don't have a tree, but we got everyone designing baubles, didn't we? Designing Christmas baubles, and we had some amazing ones. I'm going to do a reel just of the bauble designs.
Yeah, they were so good. I did bring home this one. Hang on, I got it right here.
Yeah, Frenchie made it for you, didn't she? Switchblade Sisters Christmas bauble. Yeah. Mine has a trigger warning. Santa hanging from a noose or from gallows, I think. Yeah, but we had lots of dead Santas. We had lots of crime ducks because we gave out really cute Christmas ducks.
Dead ginger dead men.
Oh, yeah. It was just amazing.
I can actually show the little ducks. I've got them right here.
Nina made an awesome naughty and nice bauble. So one side was naughty, so I had in my head, I really want to hand out at these Christmas events Christmas ducks. I was like, I want to get Christmas ducks. And I told Linda, I don't know why I had this impulse to buy Christmas ducks. It's weird, isn't it? And she said that in one of the WhatsApp groups, in the Brewery Market Bubble WhatsApp group, where she tells all her regulars about all the different events and everything, she's been subliminally inserting pictures of ducks.
Love it.
With Christmas hats, Santa hats on. And that's literally what I bought. So now we have the awkward situation where Linda has power over me and knows how suggestible I am.
Yes,
how visually suggestible I am. So I wonder how she'll use that power, whether she'll use it for good or for evil.
I'll keep an eye.
We'll find out. It's Linda, so I feel like she'll use it for good or for fun.
Yeah, definitely,
It won't be for
definitely.
evil. It won't be to like manipulate me into a bad situation. It'll just be to make me do stupid or fun things.
No, to be fair, you can do that all on your own. You don't need subliminal help to do
She
that.
doesn't need no jokes on her. She just needs to say, "Hey, Dee, do you want to do this stupid thing?" And I'll fucking do it, probably.
Exactly, exactly.
You don't need to Photoshop ducks into into an image. Anyways, that's yeah, that's what happened there with the ducks. Anyway, so a lot of the baubles were duck themed as a result.
Yeah,
Maybe they were in the
brilliant.
WhatsApp group as well, and they got
Maybe,
subliminally.
maybe.
Maybe. But yeah, it was so much fun. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Now we only have Christmas to look forward to,
Ugh.
which is so much shitter than our Christmas events to look forward to.
Yeah, that is true.
Anyway. All right. Apply to date us so that we're not depressed over Christmas. Give us
Yes.
your money in some capacity by buying our merch or coming to our events, so that we're not depressed over Christmas, or give us relationship advice. That'll probably
So that we are
depress us.
depressed over Christmas.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'll probably depress us because we'll be like, oh, we haven't been doing any of this good advice stuff. We've
No,
been doing the opposite.
exactly.
Yeah.
I just found this little cute blue one that goes with my
Oh,
hoodie.
the blue one's cute.
That's
The blue
so
one is
cute.
cute. I know. Emma asked for all the leftover ducks to decorate her house with the leftover ducks.
Which Dee thinks is really weird, but I'm
think it's
cool
fun.
with.
I think it's funny. All right. Love you, sexy listeners. Love you, Emma.
Love you, sexy listeners.
And it was episode 12, by the way. We are
Wow, it's
just
gone so
smashing
quick.
through the episodes. Pow, pow,
We
pow.
are.
Yeah, we're gonna have
Pow,
to
pow.
finish about the end, think about the end of the season at some point.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
But good.
Okay. Love you.
Love you.
I love you, sexy listeners. Bye.